In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with a recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking Sharon's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. A prayer when a loved one's life is cut short by tragedy, by Rabbi Naomi Levy. I can't believe I will never see your sweet and loving face again. I am shattered. I keep thinking I'll wake up from this cruel nightmare. I wish I could make sense of the senselessness of your death. I wish I could understand why. I wish I could have done something to save you, to protect you. I feel so shocked, so helpless, and angry, and alone. I pray that you are at peace now. Your life ended tragically and too soon, but that's not how I will remember you. I will remember your smile. I'll remember your wisdom, your touch. I will remember your laughter, your kindness, your generosity, your determination, and your love. I know that you wouldn't want me to sink into despair. You always taught me to live up to the best in myself, and that's what I will try to do. I will strive to search for the goodness in every soul and to live up to the goodness inside my own soul. Your life was extinguished, but your light can never be extinguished. I know it will continue to shine upon me even in the darkest nights and illuminate my way. You are with me always. May God watch over you and bless you with peace and eternal love from me and everyone who knows you. And let us say, Amen. Psalm 23. I'm going to do it first in Hebrew and chant it, and then we'll say it together from our programs in the English. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsa, Binot deshe yarbitzeni, Amei menuchot yenahaleni, Nafshi yeshovev, Nafshi yeshovev, Yancheni v'maglei tzedek, Leman shemo. Gam ki elech begetz amavet, lo hirara ki ata imati, shivtecha umishantecha, Shivtecha umishantecha, Hema yenachamuni, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Neged zorerai, Di shanta vashemen roshi, di shanta vashemen roshi, di shanta vashemen roshi, kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed, yirdefuni, kol yemei chayai, Veshavti beveit Adonai, Veshavti beveit Adonai, leorech yamim. Inside your programs, please say along with me. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God lays me down in green pastures, leads me to still waters, renews my life, guides me in right paths, for that is God's way. Though I walk through a valley as dark as death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in full view of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup is overflowing. Only goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. Because Sharon was a fierce woman, or as they translate, Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, and a woman of strength, and a woman of love. I'm going to do Eshet Chayil for her. Eshet Chayil mimsa v'rachoch mipnimi michrabatach balev bala v'shala lo yechsar Gemaltu tov v'lo ra kol yemechayeh darshat zemer ufishtim v'ta'as b'chapetz kapeha Hayta kaniot socher mimerchach tavi lachma v'takom b'od laila v'titen terf leveta v'choch nanor teha zama masade v'tichachehu mipricha pehanata karem Hogra ba'oz motneha v'tamat zeroteha Tama kitov sachra lo ichbe balayla nera yadeha shilcha v'kishor v'chapeha tamkufa alech Kappa parsa la'oni ve'yadeha shilcha la'evyon lotira leveta mishalech kicho beta lavushanim marvadi nastyala shesh v'gam anavusha noda v'sharim bala b'shiv toim zichne aretz sadi nasta v'timchor v'chagor natna laknani oz v'hada levusha v'tischach leyom acharon Piha potcha v'chochma v'torat chesed alishonat Sophia halichot beita v'lechem asulot ochel Kamu v'neha v'yashruha bala v'halala rabot banot asu chayil Ve'at alit al kulana Sheker hachen ve'hevel hayofi Isha yirat Adonai Iti talal tenula Mipri adeha vi hallelujah vashari maseha. A woman of strength, who can find? Beyond pearls is her value. Her husband's heart trusts in her, gain shall not be lacking for him. She does him only good, no harm all the days of her life. She seeks out wool and flax and works willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. From afar she brings her food. She rises while it is yet night and gives food to her household and a portion to her maids. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands she plants a vineyard. She girds with might her loins and strengthens her arms. She senses her wares are good. Her lamp does not go out at night. Her hands she extends the distaff, and her palms grasp the spindle. Her palm she opens to the poor. Her hands she extends the needy. She has no fear for her household from the snow, for all her household are clothed in finery. Coverings she makes herself, fine linen and purple are her garb. Her husband is known at the gates, where he sits with the elders of the land. A sheet she makes and sells, a sash she supplies to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her garb, as she laughs at future days. Her mouth she opens in wisdom. A lesson in kindness is always on her tongue. She watches the conduct of her household. The bread of sloth she never eats. Her children rise up to make her happy. Her husband praises her. Many women have excelled, but you surpass them all. Grace is deceitful, beauty illusory. A woman who fears God, she shall be praised. Give her credit for the fruit of her labors. May her deeds and her loves always praise her at the gates. From Proverbs. According to the Midrash, which is rabbinic commentary on the Torah, when the Israelite women left Egypt, they brought with them every piece of gold jewelry and every precious scrap of cloth and thread that they thought might be important for the journey. They didn't know how these items might be used, but these women had hope and trust that there would be a perfect and beautiful place for everything they carried with them through the desert. Yesterday we read Parshat Ki Tisa, in which the golden calf was created with excess gold, and it is seen as one of the major leadership fails of the entire Torah. However, the Torah and the rabbis clarify that the gold that came forth for this disastrous project did not come from the Israelite women, only the Israelite men. Everything the women saved instead went to continue this week's project, the Mishkan, or the tabernacle, or the portable home for God that would travel with the Israelites wherever they went. All of these women were described in this week's Torah portion, Vayachel, as wise-hearted women. They were wise-hearted not just because of the gold that they had carefully saved for this holy purpose, but they were wise-hearted because of their skill of spinning thread and weaving the beautiful fabrics needed to cover the Mishkan inside and out. This rabbinic idea that the essence of a woman's wisdom is in the creation of thread is particularly beautiful because thread is designed to connect two or more items together. The Israelite women used these threads to create tapestries for God's home, the tabernacle or the Mishkan, but at the very same time, they did, and still do, create threads of family in their home, connecting to the ones they care about, and maintaining and strengthening these threads into a masterpiece of love woven together with the threads of their heart. And it is for all of this that the rabbis and the Torah celebrate the Israelite women and the boundless wisdom and generosity of their hearts. Sharon Ann Engmann was a wise-hearted woman in all the ways that she could be. She was devoted to her family and friends and loved with an energetic, deep, and boundless love. Born to Joseph and Sally Nagorner, the second of 3 daughters, Sharon graduated from Valley High School and graduated from Drake University with a teaching degree, and for many years was the laughing sub, a substitute teacher for the West Des Moines Public Schools. She met her beloved husband, Josh, the love of her life, at a Jewish singles event, and the rest was history. There was no couple like them. They were sometimes called the loud family, quote unquote, but you couldn't think of one of them without the other. Their love was deep and was perhaps the most beautiful thread that was in the tapestry of Sharon's life. They had 3 children together, Emily, Danielle, Danny, and Samuel, Sam. Sharon was an amazing listener, and because she cared about you so much, she was always rooting for you, especially for her family. Sharon would do anything for her family. From her mother to her granddaughters, she always tried to anticipate everyone's needs, and if she didn't know what you needed, she would make sure that she asked, and she would provide it for you as soon as she was able, which could be hours. She was incredibly proud of her family, and I know that everyone knew this. She adored her grandchildren and was always willing to FaceTime and visit on the phone if she couldn't be there in person to babysit. Sharon loved being a mom. If one of her kids called her, you might be in the middle of a conversation, but she would definitely hang up on you to talk to them. She was not just proud of her kids, but she was supportive and proud of their significant others, and might even take their side in a disagreement over her kids. Sharon was the funniest person in the world who didn't mean to be funny. Going to a party with her meant that you would certainly run into someone she knew, whether it be from the present or from years before. She was an incredible friend, a great listener. Like a vault, she would hold your secrets, but she would worry about you more than she often worried about herself. Sharon's heart was enormous, and she cared with such depth. If she didn't know how to help you, especially if you were having a hard time, she would always try to figure out any way she could to be supportive. For so many, especially her family, she was the guiding light, and she was the voice of reason. She had a heart full of wisdom, weaving threads of connection and relationship wherever she went. Her heart was her home, and her home was her heart. But like the tabernacle that the Israelite women helped build, that heart was portable. And when she was with you, you felt comfortable, loved, and embraced, not just by her hugs, but by her incredible, unforgettable smile that could light up a room. An experimental cook, Sharon was much more comfortable shopping than in the kitchen, and could often be found at TJ Maxx or Marshall's looking for that next great deal, and that deal just might be a gift for you. She always had a list, but that didn't matter. She loved to go down every single aisle, and she would tell you that she just needed to look. Sharon generally never got mad and was incredibly forgiving, but she would definitely not be happy with you if you ever bought something at full price or paid more than $2 for a card. She loved playing mahjong in person, but since the start of the pandemic, enjoyed playing on her iPad and would watch reality TV, especially true crime stories. She loved reading, but she would, of course, only check out books from the library. What is particularly difficult is that we all know that even though Sharon got such a thrill from a good sale and it was a badge of honor for her, she herself was priceless. From her infectious laugh and smile to her warmth and unending love, she was beautiful inside and out with a heart of gold, and certainly, like the woman of valor, the fierce woman, she was far more precious than pearls. When I was driving home on Friday from meeting with Sharon's family, I had the radio on, but I was definitely distracted. And then I heard Van Morrison's song, Warm Love, come on. I hardly ever hear that song on the radio, but it was there on Friday. And the refrain, which makes up the majority of the song, is, and it's ever present everywhere, and it's ever present everywhere, it's warm love. I listened, and I think forever that song will remind me of Sharon Ann Engmann. She was a wise-hearted woman coming from and part of a long line of incredible women who wove threads of connection into one big tapestry of love, of warm love. I hope that for each and every one of us who are shocked and saddened by this sudden, irreparable, and irreplaceable loss, we feel that warm love of Sharon Engmann forever, and are reminded always that her love will always be present, ever present, everywhere, especially when we need it the most. Yehi Zikra Baruch. May Sharon's memory always be for a blessing, and may God comfort her husband Josh, her children Emily, Danielle, and Samuel, her granddaughters Stephanie, Billy, and Piper, her mother Sally, her sisters Anita and Nancy, her sisters-in-law Susie and Shelley, her nephews, nieces, cousins, and friends spread far and wide, many of whom are here today, and I know many more are watching on the live stream, and all who knew her and loved her. I'll now ask her sister Nancy to come up and speak.
When I was about 4 years old, I learned about the birds and the bees from my very wise older sister. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nancy, Sharon's 8 years younger sister, so now I'll let you do the math on that. When I was in junior high, Sharon let me have a sleepover at her Chi Omega sorority house at Drake, and showed me what a wonderful experience sorority life was. And that's when I learned that when I go to college, I want to be in a sorority house just like my sister, and I ended up in Chi Omega just like my sister. But the best and most important thing I learned from my sister, actually from both my sisters and my mom, was there is nothing more important than family. As the rabbi said, Sharon would drop everything to be there for her family. Her priorities were always family and friends, distantly followed by Marshalls and TJ. Anita always said if she was chatting on the phone with Sharon and one of the kids called, Sharon hung up on her to answer her kids' calls. When I had a difficult time in my life, Sharon came to Minneapolis the next day and slept in bed with me for nearly a week. If one of her loved ones was hurting, then she was hurting. I think if having a career had been important to her, she would have been a counselor. She was our family's counselor and caretaker. Right now, we all want to go to her and ask how we can possibly get through this. And I think I know what she would say. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. Grief has no expiration date. Be there for each other and take care of each other's hearts. To Josh and my nieces and nephews, Grandma, Anita, and I will work so hard to take care of your hearts. And we will keep your mom's memory alive for Stevie, Billy, and Piper.
Now Sharon's family is going to come up and speak. Here are your folders.
Mom, Grandma. When I asked Howie what he would say if he was writing it, he said just one word, Sharon. Everyone just knew her and knew her spirit and her laughter and her joy. When Mom and Dad were around, everyone knew it. Not just because of their collective volume, but because of their energy as a couple. Growing up, my siblings and I questioned if our friends were our friends because they liked us, or our friends were our friends because they liked their parents. Mom and Dad loved getting to know the people we were spending our time with when we weren't with them. That continued into our adulthood. Mom and Dad would spend weekends with us in the Twin Cities, hanging out with our neighbors, helping me in my classroom, or joining us at a Temple of Aaron event. They would drop in on Danny at her office here in Des Moines to get to know her coworkers, and visit Sam in Chicago, connecting with his med school friends and Dana. No matter where we were at in our lives, Mom and Dad always did everything they could to be a part of it and of our communities. I told the girls as I put them to bed the other night that their grandma taught me how to be a mom and how to be an even better grandma when my time comes. She delighted in all things family and defended us all fiercely. She knew exactly what kind of love to give each of us and understood and appreciated each of us and where we were at in our lives. When Mom and I would talk, it was generally about what the kids were doing, funny things that happened at school, or our comings and goings. She would always say, "I don't know how you do it all." My tendency for sarcasm developed in junior high and never quite went away. She found it funny and endearing when directed at just about anyone or anything, but periodically, if my sarcasm came her way, I was quickly transported back to being a child, and she would call me out, reminding me she was my mother. She was just beginning to relish in me getting a taste of my own medicine with Stevie's earlier onset of sarcasm in the last year or so. Oftentimes during the week, I would be wiped after work and not in a mood for much conversation. She always gave me the grace to be brief, which was likely balanced with the fact that Stevie would call her daily, or at least when she knew that Piper was with her. I'd walk into the house after school this year when Stevie would get home before me and hear my mom's voice echoing through my house. Admittedly, sometimes I just wanted some quiet when I got home, but I treasured the connection and bond that Stevie was strengthening in those moments. Stevie was the granddaughter who would feed Mom's need to talk shopping. Billy was generally less engaged in talking on the phone or FaceTime, natural for a child of her age, but just recently spent a solid 45 minutes talking Mom's ear off, and it made Mom so happy. Billy was also the one who Mom was beginning to pass her passion for Maj on to. They would snuggle on the couch with Mom's iPad, and Billy would get a tutorial. Mom said Billy is actually quite good. Somehow this is not a surprise. These moments are now locked in my heart and memory forever. As for Howie, Mom considered him one of her own. This was evident as every time we would come to town, she'd say, "I made Howie brownies." To which I'd reply, "Am I allowed to have some?" She was so excited about the work he did on their house last year, and every time she had a decision to make about the project, she'd call me and say, "What does Howie think?" This was generally because Dad's response when she asked for an opinion was usually, "Whatever you want, Sharon." I'd remind her that she was the homeowner and she would be the one living with it, but she'd usually end up making a decision based on Howie's opinion.
If he wasn't already, he truly became one of her own this past year, when he finally, after 12 years of being married to me, made a crack about her creative cooking skills that she initially laughed off. But just as my sarcasm would send me back to childhood, so did his dry humor. The next day she said to me that she just couldn't believe he had said it. He promptly apologized when he realized he had gone too far with the comment and that she had expressed displeasure with him. Mom always worried what would happen between her children after she was gone. Teasingly, we would tell her we'd divide the assets and go our separate ways, but then always reassured her we'd be there for each other in her absence. We never imagined we'd have to make good on that promise so soon. We promised to support each other, to take care of Dad and Grandma, and to carry forward your legacy of love and light forever. You're forever in our hearts.
My mom was my best friend, the very best person I've ever known. I loved to show her off and was so proud to be her daughter. The last 17 months learning how to become a mom myself has been the best and hardest thing I've done. And I can say with certainty, I would not have been able to do it without her by my side. Mom and Dad both have been the best teachers for Tom and I pray we will be half the parents they have been to Emily, Sam, and I. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I showed up at the house at 7:15 with Piper. A skim mocha with light whip and a pup cup for Isabel in hand, and something for Dad on the days he was not out saving lives. I would sit and talk with them for a bit, and we would turn Cocomelon on and laugh at how excited Piper would get when the opening credits played. I would return home to start my workday and look forward to the 11 a.m. FaceTime I was sure to get when Mom pulled Piper from her crib after her first nap. She knew I kept Piper on a very strict schedule. And though they did things differently in her day, embraced this crazy thing called sleep training that I asked her to study up on before her babysitting duties commenced. I looked so forward to 4 p.m. when I got to go back to my parents' house to talk about the day and have a glass of wine with Mom. I'm so lucky to have so many of those days with her. One of the last text exchanges I had with her when she was on Piper duty puts an instant smile on my face. I would always text her during the day and say, "How is baby?" Her response always made me laugh every time, and this one was especially great. She responded with one word: annoying. Learning to live with the reality that she is no longer here on Earth feels like it is going to be impossible. Piper growing up without her Gigi is so unfair. My hope is that everyone that knew my beautiful, funny, loving mom will constantly share stories with Piper so that she will know what an amazing grandma she had and how lucky she was to have spent so much time with her over the last 17 months. Thank you all for being here to celebrate her beautiful life with us.
Okay. Thank you. The love and support we've been showered with has been overwhelming. It has made this time just a little bit easier. We have received condolences from family and friends near and far. Some have had the blessing of knowing my mom, and some have not. But what humbles me during this indescribable time is how extensive her reach was. She shed her light on anyone who came into direct contact with her, and in a way she instilled in my family a piece of her. so those we knew could feel her glow. At this moment, I look back on my life and I try to remember all the memories of my mother. There are innumerable in the 31 years I've had with her. And I'm at a loss. I never thought this day would come this soon and this sudden. There was so much life she had left to live. She was going to Florida with Dad and many more adventures thereafter. She was going to attend the B'nai Mitzvah of my niece Stevie. She was going to watch my other niece, Billy, shoot slap shots on the ice rink. She was going to babysit my yet other little niece, Piper, and buy her cute little leopard print outfits. And she was going to attend a certain proposal and wedding and welcome more grandchildren at some point in the future. I know she'll still have these experiences. It just won't be the way I wanted it. In my 4th year of medical school, I was graced with an opportunity to go home for a stretch of months. I spent time with my mom that I would and will never have again. We would start our days out with coffee. I always did a small Americano or a nitro cold brew. She would get a small mocha skim light whip stirred with a little chocolate espresso bean on top. We would go see my grandmother together. We would go shopping at Marshall's and DSW. We would go grab groceries. We would go on little errands here and there. And those were some of the fondest memories I have. When I started residency, my time was more limited, yet I still called her close to every single day. The days I missed, I felt guilty. She tended to start our conversations with her concern for others who were going through difficult times. I told her everything, whether it was good or bad. I tend to wear my feelings on my sleeve, but she always had a knack of knowing something was up and getting me to tell her. It was typically related to exams or tough days at work, but what she always told me is she believed in me and knew I would get done what I needed to get done. She would end the call with, "I love you, honey," and take it easy. And I would say, "Mom, I can't always take it easy." And she would say, "I just want you to be well." For my mother, her family was her world. And in her last week, that could not be more true. She took my grandmother to and from her medical appointments. She would text me and call me with updates. She had her usual daily calls with my sisters and I, as well as her sisters. She looked after Piper, spoke with Stevie and Billy, and she continued to love my dad from the time she woke up to the time she went to bed. When I thought things were at their worst, it was her comforting voice that put life in perspective. At the end, I was scared, but I don't think she was. The last thing I said to her was, "The doctors are going to take good care of you, and I love you, Mom." She responded with, "I know, and I love you, honey." I didn't sense any fear in her voice. It was the same soothing voice I'd heard over and over again. I said it all the time, but I honestly could never say it enough. "I love you, Mom."
I've been the caretaker of the Tifereth Israel Synagogue, Jewish Glendale Cemetery section for almost 27 years. And I do not want to be here today with my family to say goodbye to Sharon. Life is unfair. Bad things are not supposed to happen to good people. Sharon was a good person, a loving wife, mother, and grandmother. I cannot express in words how our children and I feel about her sudden passing. Thank you for the outpouring of support and expressions of love during this time of immense loss and sorrow. To all those that are here and on live stream, thank you. I especially want to thank my EMS, West Des Moines EMS friends and coworkers for being here. This afternoon, Sharon and I were supposed to be leaving for Florida for vacation and to celebrate Sharon's 66th birthday tomorrow. She always said she was 6 weeks older than I am, and that will always be true. I'm thankful for the 40 years of marriage we had together. It will be difficult, but I will carry on because that is what she would want. There are so many Sharonisms that her family and friends will always remember and cherish. Sharon was known for loving to wear anything leopard print. I never thought I would be standing here wearing leopard print. But here I am wearing a tie from one of her robes in honor of her. I'm sure she's laughing at me right now. Sharon loved the many cards for special occasions that I would give to her, and she would get mad at me if I spent too much money. Here's the card I picked out for her birthday tomorrow that I was going to give to her, and I want to read it now. For my wife, sometimes I look at you and it seems like only yesterday we were falling in love, getting married, becoming a family, but somewhere between then and now, we've managed to do a whole lot of living and loving. Together we've built something to be proud of, a solid relationship, a home we feel safe in, a family we love, and what we have together means everything to me. Thank you, Sharon, for sharing my life, being my love, and helping make my dreams come true. I love you. Sharon, we love you, and we'll miss your radiant smile and infectious laugh, but it will guide us in the upcoming days, months, and years. I promise I will watch over our family and be there for them like you would want me to. We will cherish and honor your memory forever. I love you. Just leave it up here.
Immediately following the memorial prayer for Sharon, which we will do in a minute, we will escort her out of the building. I will go first behind saying a psalm in Hebrew and then in English, and the family will follow behind me with the pallbearers. Interment will follow at Jewish Glendale Cemetery, and you can follow the police escort out and follow the rest of the cars. And we will bury her ourselves, as is our custom. The meal of consolation will be private, and then there will be a Zoom Shiva Minyan on Monday night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And you shall have already received the link in your email, but you can contact the office if you need more information. I encourage you not to contact the family. I think they can use the time to not have to answer a lot of questions. So the office should be able to help you. And also there's many, many people on the synagogue listserv who also would be able to give you the information that you need. We don't put any information about Shiva, Zoom Shiva, or otherwise online ever for security purposes. So you'll have to access it that way. There will also be a PDF. There's also a PDF included in that. It went out in the announcement about Sharon's passing. There's also a PDF of the service if you want to follow along with the brief service that will happen before we say Kaddish. The live stream of this service will be saved on our YouTube channel for a very long time, but without Sharon's name. Again, this is a security element, so it will say funeral, and then it will give the time and day stamp, and you will know that it's there, and you can also tell your friends who were not able to be here that they're able to watch it later on. The rest of the Shiva will be private. Please rise for El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Ba'amromim, Amsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, Beba'alot Kedoshim Utohorim, Kezohar Harakia Mashirim, Et Nishmat Shoshana Bat Yosef Esora, Shehalacha La'olama, Began Eden Tehei Menuchata, Ana Baharachamim, Hastireha Beseter Kenafecha La'olamim, Utzror B'Yisroach Hayim Et Nishmatach, Adonai Hu Nachalatach, V'tanuach b'shalom amishkava, v'nomar amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Sharon Ann Engmann, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one always find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul always be bound up in the bond of life, in the bond of love, and in the bond of good memories. May she rest in peace always. And let us say, Amen. I'll now ask the pallbearers to please come forward.